Okay, so you had no business training,
No.
but you had all of this beautiful theatrical training.
Yeah.
And was there any like film and TV training, or was it all theater?
All theater.
All scene study.
Yeah. So I got to New York not knowing what to do at all when it came to camera, and it was it was terrifying. I felt like it was something that was somehow beyond me. Again, that's my mindset, though. I'm sure you see a pattern. Like, this isn't something I can do, right? I had a couple of friends who graduated with me who were like, this is absolutely what I can do. And they stepped into New York and right into careers on screen, right? But for me, I had something going on in my mind that was saying, this is not for you. So it took me a little extra effort to cross those hurdles.
Was that where the Buddhism came in, or was
that Buddhism was later? But it started there, you know, with therapy, with just taking different on-camera classes. What was that studio on, like 30?
One-on-one?
One-on-one, yeah. I started taking classes there, and, you know, cleaning toilets in exchange for acting classes, and just like piecing it together until I started to think of it as something that I could do.
And so then you started getting film and TV auditions?
No. No, I did not. I couldn't get them to save my life. And when I did, I still didn't quite know what to do. I remember I would get big ones, like these big auditions. How Stella Got Her Groove Back, I remember.
Oh, wow.
Poetic Justice, all these big movies that were coming out in the early 90s. And since I was the young new thing in New York, I was getting these appointments, but not really knowing what to do when I got there. You know, and so I was just constantly defeated in that realm, but also working all the time in theater. So I didn't notice there was a deficit. I was like, I'm doing my work. Maybe that's just not for me. It was the on-camera work.
Okay, so then when did that change? So
that changed after September 11th. I mean, it's a long story. Y'all don't mind if I keep it real, right? I got sober. I got sober. That changed a lot for me, because that was like keeping me sort of stuck and weighted down, you know, and I think that's sort of universal, like whatever your baggage is, you got to put it down first, you know. So I did that. That's when I started to practice Buddhism. So I had this philosophy that says, you can make the impossible possible. You can go for your dream. You have a mission. You have a reason and a purpose for living. So I connected with that. Really jumped into therapy deep. Do you know what I mean? So there was all these, and then 9/11, right, was happening at the same time. So the world was blowing up, my life was blowing up, and I felt like I have to really make a change. And I was doing a workshop with New York Theater Workshop. I was at my lowest point. And the woman in the room next to me started chanting. That's how I found Buddhism. Oh, wow. And I was like, I remember that chant. I've heard that. And I was like, I'm gonna chant and see if I can like pull myself up out of this foolishness. And I would sit by the window and chant with her whenever I never told her, but just chant with her. Oh. And there was a casting director at that workshop who saw me, called me in the week when we got back to New York for Brother to Brother, which was my first movie. And that was the first time I went in, and the role was perfect for me. It was like all my life. I knew what to do when I got into the room for the first time, because I had done the work. I had been doing the work then for 7 years. Went in and booked it. And then I was like, okay, I can do this. And it's gonna be easy from now on.
So Brother to Brother, so how long was that process? How big was the role? What was the story there?
It was a lead role. It was a big role. I'd always thought my first role in a movie would be a walk-on. It was a lead. It had a death scene, a nude scene, 2 sex scenes, like everything everything that's hard.
Yep.
Right, for an actor.
Yep.
A scene where I had to strip down in front of a camera naked and just be like, have the camera roll. You know what I mean? It was like a really challenging role.
Full frontal?
Full frontal.
Oh, wow.
Brother to Brother. And it's an okay movie. It was an important movie, though. That's one thing. And that comes back to knowing what your mission is. Because now I get young gay Black men, even today, coming up to me saying, I saw that movie and it made a difference for my life. That was a part of my coming out story, or that was the reason I fill in the blank. So the movie was what it was, but it had a good impact on a lot of people.
Who directed it?
Rodney Evans wrote and directed.
Okay. Have you stayed in touch with him?
Absolutely, yeah. I saw him this summer. He has another film. He's recently gone blind.
Oh, wow.
Which is a whole other story. But because of his spirit, he made a documentary about this process of going blind, and it premiered over the summer.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, still directing. He's like, I can still direct.
Oh my God, amazing.
Why not? Right? That's the kind of mindset
Yes. Why
that you
not?
have to have. Why not? I can do it.
Okay, so brother to brother came, and then what happened?
And then I said, I'm packing up and moving to LA
Really?
because I got a movie coming out, and I went to Sundance and won the special jury prize at Sundance. And there was all this buzz about it. And I had just gotten a rent stabilized apartment in New York. Woke up one day and was like, I'm leaving. It's time to go. And I just got packed up three months to the day, 3303, and came to LA.
3303. Wow.
And could not get anything.
Arrested.
The first manager that I met was like, you're too old. I don't know what to do with you. And I was 33, maybe. Looked 25,
Yeah,
max. This was 2003. I was a baby, and he was still like, there's nothing I can do with you. Something, I don't remember his name, but he's in my Oscar speech. I can't wait.
Oh my God.
I haven't heard anything about him. And he was a friend of a friend too. And he was pretty established. He was a good manager. But but it was an important lesson for me, right? Like I said, this was my first meeting here, and I said to myself, LA is either gonna make me clear or it's gonna make me crazy. And I saw it. I was like, because this is bullshit, right? Like I know. And I just, something in me was like, this just gotta keep pushing on, just keep going. And I just kept going.
Okay, so this man gave you this horrible, so this man told you this horrible shit, and what did it do to your mindset and to your psyche? How long did it take you to bounce back? Was it?
I bounced back very quickly because I was new in my practice, right? And I had this sense of myself of like, I can do this. And it seemed so crazy what he was saying that I didn't take it in.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know what I mean? I was like, I have to fight no matter what, and it just made me more determined to figure it out. And when I did sign with my first agent, they were terrible, right? When I signed with my second agent in LA, it was just like, it was really not an easy process.
Yeah.
For me.
How did you get your meetings?
I mean, this was in the olden days. I mean, there was two ways. So they say never walk into the office, right? Never go in. One of them, I was walking by in some office building. I saw Carol voiceover casting and I forget what the agency was in that building over in Burbank. And I was like, I'm walking into Carol's voiceover casting. And I just walked in and I was like, hi. I said, are you Carol? And she said, hi. And I said, hey. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm an actor. She said, I like your voice. I was like, right. She's like, come on into the booth.
Look at that.
Oh my God. I didn't know anything about voiceover. Hadn't done that, but I was like, look, walked in, she read me for something, and I booked it. Right? So then the agency that shared the office, I was like, well, clearly they're gonna sign me now. And I walked over after I was like, hey, I did the voiceover with Carol across the hall. And they were like, get out of our office. There's the door. You know what I mean? It was nothing. So there was that experience. And then the others, it was just dropping off headshots, like old school headshots, dropping them off. Remember those labels you used to be able to buy? I would buy those labels and just do mailings and and that's how you kept, and some of them would sign you, but they just weren't great. They didn't have, and I didn't understand then that your agent has to be connected and have some kind of power in order to get the work. Yeah.
So you had signed with, was it 3 people? Was it Avi was the one that kind of changed things?
Yeah, but that was 10 years later.
Oh, really? Okay, so fill me in on those 10 years.
So those 2 years. So I got a small part on this new hit show in 2004. Of Grey's Anatomy that everybody was talking about. And the part that I got was the paramedic. And a friend of mine was initially cast as the paramedic, but he couldn't remember the medical dialogue.
Oh.
And he had this terrible nightmare on set where, he's got to bring in Bobby Smith, 22, heart rate, blah, 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 blah. And he couldn't get it. And it was just holding up production and everybody was pissed and he got fired. And he confided, he was like, oh, I got fired from this job. And I'm so sorry, man, The next day, hi, can you be the paramedic on Grey's Anatomy? And I was like, well, I know my friend went through this. I took the job. And because of my theater training and my classical training, I could do that dialogue. I couldn't really act at the same time, but I could do the dialogue and get it done. And so I became Ray the paramedic for a lot of seasons. So I did that, and once I had a reel with all of those images on it, I was able to take that to an agent and say, hi, this is what I've been doing, and that's how I found out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he won't take anyone without footage. Like he needed to see me doing something so that he can have something to pitch to the casting directors.
Yeah. And so you got with, and so were you were on the entire Grey's world, like were you the whole time?
Not the whole, I mean, it's still on.
Yeah.
I did my most recent one like maybe a year and a half ago.
Okay.
When Meredith she was in trial for something and they brought back all the people whose lives she had affected. And I was one of those, she saved my life once. Because after a few seasons of bringing in the patient, they wrote 2 episodes where I was the case of the week.
Oh, wow.
So that was fun. So I came back to testify. I drove my ambulance. We were driving our ambulance to bring in a patient, and the other driver had a heart attack, and the ambulance flipped over and trapped us upside down, hanging in the driveway of the hospital for a whole episode. So I filmed both episodes hanging upside down. They built this contraption that traps you in, and then you sit up here and they go, action, and it flips you over.
Oh.
And you're just hanging there like, yeah. It was,
I mean, not whole episodes
upside down.
Did you read that?
Well, SAG has restrictions, thank God for the union.
Yeah.
You can only be upside down for 45 seconds at a time.
Oh.
So there was someone there doing that, and they call cut, and when they call cut, they got to bring you up.
I thought it was like a tap out situation. It's like, that's it.
I can't breathe anymore. No, they cut it and you come back up, which made it worse, to be totally honest. It's not a long time. So they got to the point where I was like, just keep me here and let's do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to keep doing that. But that footage is what got me my representation.
I'm not a Grey's Anatomy watcher. I did not know that. Now I have a whole different respect for you.
2004, you said, when it first.
I think that's when the show started.
Insane.
I started towards the end of, no, I was in the first season. I started in the first season, but like halfway through. Yeah.
What happened to your friend who lost the job? Was he ever too as a live?
He's fine. He's still out there. He's still active. He's still hustling. He's still doing it.
Okay.
Yeah. It was not, it was just a bump in the road.
Yeah.
He's also a Buddhist.
One day you get an audition for Don't Trust the Bee.
Well, so it was when I signed with Avi, and he said, I need these 3 pictures. And I was like, okay.
What were they?
They were, I need the guy who's coming to check the gas meter. I need the dad who's losing control of the family, who's like harried and confused. And I need the snooty hotel manager.
Ooh,
and he was like, get me those 3 pictures. And I was like, this man is nuts. And I was like, let me do it. I got exactly those pictures. I delivered them to him because it was pre-uploading pictures.
Oh my God.
Within 11 days, I booked all 3 of those parts.
Wow.
You can see me on the pilot of Touch with Kiefer Sutherland as coming to check it wasn't a gas meter, it was a phone meter with like the phone. Yeah, that thing almost went up. Yeah, it's lucky he didn't, well, it was exactly that. The other was, I forget the name of the show, but the hairy dad with the tie was also the pilot. And I'm like, oh, my son was driving. And the snooty hotel manager was on Apartment 23. And they were all co-stars.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, so then how did it evolve?
Luther evolved because of my work ethic and the work ethic of my co-star, my primary co-star, who was James Vanderbeek. And we connected and we found comedy together that they hadn't anticipated. And they started to write to that comedy.
Wow.
It was supposed to be, again, like 1 or 2 episodes. They didn't know. And then it started as a co-star. I did 4 as a co-star, then I was a guest star. And then in season 2, I was promoted to series regular.
So when you get that information that you've been promoted to series regular, what's that?
It's, you know, it's what we think we want more than anything, right? So there's a moment of, yes, I made it, I'm here, I got this. And then if you're me, it's followed by terror. You know, like that's always kind of my default, or it used to be, it's not so much anymore. But I remember at one point on the set, before I was promoted, we were shooting the scene in a car and I felt in my mind that it wasn't going well. And we were back at the trailers on lunch and I was talking to one of my co-stars. We were smoking cigarettes because I smoked back then. And I was like, oh, I think they're gonna fire me. I was like, they hate me. They hate me on this show. And she goes, what are you talking about? They want to make you a series regular next season. And she was, and I was like, black. I was like, say what? Because that's just kind of that's at the time, that's where my mind was. There was still a part of me that felt like this is work that I don't know how to do. Right. And so I was still stepping into it and it was happening so quickly and I was working so much and I was like, why is this? And I was doing comedy for the first time. Like I had no idea. I'd never done comedy before and the show hadn't premiered yet. So I didn't know what I was doing. I'm like, is this funny? This isn't funny, you know, because there's no audience,
Right.
You know.
You had no way to gauge it.
I had no way to gauge it. When I saw it, I was like, oh, that's what this is. Yeah. Also, the show itself was like, what?
Yeah, the tone.
What is this show?
Yeah. At that time, yeah.
You're like, what is this? It was ahead of its time, I think, that show.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't funny.
They couldn't like describe the tone.
Right.
While you were shooting.
Right.
Like, this is the thing that people are going to use to describe a tone later.
Exactly. Yeah. And then when you see it, you go, oh, that's the tone. That's it. That's what we're going for. That's what we were doing for the past year, making the show.
How difficult? I mean, that seems like in retrospect that it would be really confusing in the moment and also even in retrospect. Because once you get a chance to see it, it's like, was I doing this or did they just end it like this?
Right. I did, but here's the thing. This is where your co-stars are really important, right? If you're watching, I've learned this now, watch what the leads are doing. Watch what the number 1 on the call sheet is doing. She knows what the tone is, right? Pay attention to her. I didn't know that at the time. But if you watch them and lean on them, they'll help you figure out what you're supposed to be doing.
That's valuable.
Yeah.
Very valuable.
Yeah.
Everybody heard that?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you also have like a knack for like just getting cast as a 1 or 2 thing, and then people are like, we love him or whatever, and you know.
Well, that's about how we show up, you know. That's that's like, because so many actors don't show up. So you'll see, y'all know, you'll show up on a set and somebody will have no idea what's going on. They won't know their lines, or they'll have an attitude that always blows my mind.
Yeah.
You know, like people can be really nasty. So I always lead with my heart and I always lead with my craft. So I think that's why I've had any success at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing the way that the things have unfolded for you. It's beautiful to see and to watch and to witness. And very inspiring. Always inspired by the way. So we've got apartment 4B, and that goes on for
2 seasons.
2 seasons. That's on Netflix, right?
It started on ABC.
It did?
Yeah.
Oh.
It came out at just before streaming. So that was the other thing.
Okay.
Hulu was new, but nobody had Hulu yet. But the people who had it were watching our show. We're watching Apartment 23. ABC didn't own Hulu at the time.
Apartment 23, I said
Apartment
4B.
We got you. And so, but they weren't willing to validate those ratings because they were threatened by streaming at that point. Remember, there was a battle at the beginning between the streamers and the networks. Now they all have streaming platforms, but at the beginning, they were fighting for the power. And so they wouldn't count our ratings. We're like, people are watching this show. People like this show. Didn't matter.
That sucks.
Yeah, so then but then right after our show was canceled, like the next season, they started counting those ratings.
Oh.
They gave in, because they had to. We were the sacrificial lamb.
Some bullshit.
And 2 other shows took the formula of that show and were hits.
That's very annoying.
Just the way it goes.
Okay, so then Apartment 23 happened, and then there was a little gap. From Tom, correct me if I'm wrong.
There was a gap, yeah.
There was a little gap for you.
Yeah, there was a gap. It was a weird gap too, because I was working just enough to not have to have other work. You know? So my dream had always been to be a working actor who didn't have to have another job. And I was doing that, but nothing else was really happening. I just wasn't, it wasn't fun. I didn't love it. And I was like, you know what? I'm kind of letting this go.
Right. Oh my God, I forgot that whole portion.
Yeah.
Where you became a writer.
There was a whole, so I started this writing program at UCLA and really loved it. And I was, you know, it was writing and the management of entertainment was the sort of focus that I was at. And I did that. It was like a 2-year program. My last class, the teacher came in and I just didn't vibe with her. I was like, this isn't gonna work. And they were like, you can do an internship instead of this class to still finish. And so I called my contacts at Grey's Anatomy and I said, who I'd gone to college with, right? And I said, hey, listen, I'm looking for an internship. She said, come intern with me. I did. She had a new show that she was developing. I helped her work on her pitch for that show. She pitched it, she sold it, and she hired me as a staff writer on that show. And I was like, okay. I was like, this is what I want to do now. And so I joined the writers room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was, now I can't remember the name of the show.
That was Rebel.
Rebel with
also ABC.
Katie Seagal, which was only one season.
One season, yeah.
I never, yeah, it was very recent, very, very recent. I went in for Louise. You did?
Is this the one?
Where she was playing the Erin Brockovich.
Oh.
With Andy Garcia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, okay, so then when did Maggie happen? That happened.
So I was doing that show and really loving the writers room. We got to the point where we were producing the episodes because I had experience on set. I was trusted as a staff writer to produce and to be on set because you have to talk to the actors, communicate with the director. And it didn't bother me. Some of the other writers don't really like being on set, but for me, it was fine. So I was doing that and having the time of my life. And also every week we would have table reads and, you know, the writers fill in for the actors who are not cast yet. So I kept reading all these scripts in the table read. The casting director for Rebel was like, you're an actor, huh? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, come read for this pilot for me. And I was like, no, I'm the guy here. It's not. I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. And it felt so good to be like, I'm not attached to I don't need this to be happy. Acting is not my identity, right? Like I'm allowed to do other work. All I really want to do is tell stories, whether that's as a writer or as an actor. So she's like, come audition for this pilot. This is in the middle of the pandemic too. This is maybe 2021. So everything was on Zoom. So I was like, well, it's just a Zoom audition. I was like, I can do that. Open the computer in my living room. So I literally opened my computer, had the sides here, right? I did my work, go through who am I, where am I, what's going on, what am I doing, blah, 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 you know, but really just like perfunctory about it. Let me go to this audition. And I went and did the audition and let it go. I was like, I'm never going to hear from them again. It's done. A week later, they're like, we want to test you for this role. And I still was like, I don't feel like doing this. I want to be a writer right now. But I went to the test with that same sort of laissez-faire, relaxed attitude, right? Just like, all right, let me open my computer and do this network test, which used to be, listen, a network test used to be terrifying, right?
What did that used to be? Because I've never done one.
So, and that's what was happening in that period after the B. So I have now jumped from, well, I'm rewinding now. I jumped from co-star to guest star to series regular. The show gets canceled, right? Now, all of a sudden, your bread and butter, you can't do anymore. So co-stars, right? So you're not allowed to go backwards. Everything you do from here on out has to be guest star, recurring, or series regular, right? Which I was fine with. So the process back then for testing, you go to the first audition for just the casting director, the pre-read, that's fine. And they call you to producers. You guys know this process, go to producers for that second audition in person. And then they decide they're going to test you. And the first process then is negotiating the contract. So then once they decide they're going to test you, your agents and business affairs of the network start to negotiate a contract. And they always make an offer. We'll pay you X amount of dollars per episode. We guarantee you 10 out of 13 episodes for the first season. Trailer, just like everybody else's, here's the offer. And if you have a good agent, they say, no, we want this much money. We're fine with the trailer, and he wants to be in all episodes produced. And then they wait, and they sort of go back and forth with that for usually like a couple of weeks, you know, unless it's happening really quickly sometimes, but usually they're just like, everybody's playing chicken. And then once they find a deal, then you get to the office the day of the test. They have the contract that you've agreed upon. You have to sign it before your test.
So you know how much money you could.
So you know exactly what's going on. So you're already stressed, right?
God.
You've already driven onto the CBS lot, right? And you're like, okay, your best clothes. And they bring you a packet from business affairs and you open it up and it's got it all laid out in front of you. And so you fake read it. And then you have to sign it. If I book this job, I agree to work for this amount of money and for these terms. For the next.
I could not survive it.
Well, the first time you can't survive it, but after you do it a couple of times, it's just like, you don't even care. It's just like, it's just numbers, it's just paper. It means nothing. I'm here to do my work.
Okay.
Right, what doesn't change is the story that I have to tell.
Yeah.
All this stuff is like, it's like crypto, you know, it's nothing.
Right, it's just not, it's not there.
It's not there.
It's Ethereum.
It's Ethereum, exactly. So you sign the paper and you go do the work that you know how to do. And back then you would go into like a small theater, right? Maybe like 100-seat theater with all these executives in there, you know, who don't know anything about what we do and don't really care about what we do. But they're the decision makers. So you go in, they put a mic on you usually for that, so you don't have to. You judge yourself. Yeah, you do your own judging, you know. And I would do, and if you need time, you do that. You know?
And for that kind of a thing, I would say we go to hair and makeup people.
Yeah,
that kind of a thing. Yeah.
Be ready.
Jason, you don't have to worry about that. You don't got no hair.
And then you do it, and you do your work.
Oh, look at you.
So you know.
But all this is.
Yeah, this is stuff.
I spoke 2 weeks ago and it was not like that.
It wasn't like that, I believe you.
What? Okay, so you go to your network test for Maggie? No, that was in your living room.
That was actually I was on set for Rebel the day of my test.
Okay.
There was problems with, so this is an example of the contract. So, right, we'd agreed on a contract. I got to my test for Maggie. They came in and said, oh, and they had changed some of the terms.
Without telling
Avi, without telling me. But they said, we talked to your boss at Rebel and she's okay with this switch. I had said, I will test for this show so long as Rebel is in first position, because I really wanted to write more than act at that point, right? Which meaning, if I get to choose, if Rebel goes to season 2, I get to choose. And they agreed to that, and that's the contract we agreed to. When I got to the test, they said, oh, we talked to your boss, she's fine with being in second position. And I said, I'm not fine with it, I'm not going. And I went back to work. And I was done with it. I was like, okay, I'm done with it. And the script supervisor on Rebel was like, why don't you call our boss? and see what she says. And so I was like, oh, all right. And I called her. The test, I'm now like 30 minutes late for the network test.
Yeah, diva.
And I was like, hey, this is what's happening. You know, wasn't stressed again, because I had completely separated from the attaching acting to my identity. Like, if you don't get anything out of what I say today, like, that's the number one. It's not who I am. I am not a job. I am not a paycheck. I don't care how much I'm making per week. This is not who I am. And so that felt like such a victory. And my manager even said in the conversation, he's like, well, this is the money. And I said, I don't care about the money. It's not important to me at this point in my life. So I talked to my boss. She said, listen, you and I both know that pilots don't really go to series. Like, most pilots never go to series. Just go do the pilot, make this money. It'll take you 2 days to go shoot it, and then just come right back. And it's never gonna get picked up, probably. And I was like, you know what, you're right. So then I went to my network test, you know, went to another empty stage, opened my computer and was like, hey, sorry, I'm 40 minutes late. Sorry, you guys. I'm never late for anything, right? Just know that that's just not for auditions especially. Like, I'm punctual. So, and I did it, but again, that energy translates to the audition. You know, and so things are allowed to happen because you're relaxed. It's bubbling. And so then it's a chemistry read on Zoom, which is weird. Yeah. But we worked it out, you know, and then I closed my computer thinking I'm never gonna hear from him. An hour later, you booked it. Okay. Okay. And that was my response, like, oh, geez, we'll do this pilot.
So then what happened?
And I did it, and one day.
Can I share that we worked together before you shot the pilot?
Yes, yes. That was before the test. In my car. That was in my car. Yes.
Okay. So Ray called and was like, look, I just need to play. It was like, I'm not feeling this. Right?
Yeah.
He was not excited about the role. He was like, I can't, I'm not finding anything that's exciting here.
I was like, it's not fun.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And you said, who is it? And I was like, oh, he's this psychic. He's this gay psychic. And he's all like spiritual and love. And Lynn was like, what's not fun about that? Like, you were basically said that's who you are. In so many words.
Right, and then there was the eating component.
And the eating component that I didn't understand.
Yes. So, and does your character still eat?
He ate for the first like 3 episodes.
And then they were like, you don't need to eat.
They were like, you don't need to eat, right. But it was one of those arbitrary things that sometimes they throw in. And you have to make it work. And I was so detached that I couldn't make it work. And Lynn really focused it in for me. And I forget exactly what you said to make it come to life for me. Do you remember?
I think it was about, I think the eating was a coping mechanism.
It was yeah.
Because you were feeling dissatisfied in your own life.
Right. And so, and you said this is what you said. There's a hole that he's trying to fill.
See, this is why I get paid the big bucks.
And you gotta keep shoveling this yogurt into your body to fill this hole. And then people are always pulling on you, and this is your one out.
Yes.
And so that's
right.
Then all of a sudden it was funny.
Yeah.
Because it was real. And it was something that I could connect with. And I was like, oh, bet, that's it.
Yeah, because I just thought as a psychic, people are constantly taking from your energy.
Yeah.
And you have to give so much.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
And you also said, go get something real right now.
Oh yeah, he was miming.
I was just like, wow. She's like, get a spoon, man. Go get a spoon and do this. And I was like, no.
So that was yogurt, and then we worked together a second time, I think before the first day of your shooting.
Yes.
It was great.
And then it was grapes.
Yeah.
Or strawberries.
Or cherries.
Yeah, cherries.
Cherries.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you were kind of into it.
Then I was into it.
Yeah.
But we were shooting then, and it was happening, and I was like, all right, this is fun.
Yeah. So Maggie did one season, and then there was the Hulu thing. Is that how that works?
The Hulu, what's the Hulu thing?
Where it went, didn't it switch networks?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, here's the thing, if you're on a show and the powers change up top on the network, if there's like a big shift in the structure, the power structure, you're probably getting canceled, right? Like that's what happened with Apartment 23. That was ultimately what, like there was a new head of the network and they don't want somebody's old shows, you know, and the same thing happened with Maggie. A new guy came in and they were like, oh, you're not gonna be on ABC, you're gonna be on Hulu, which is now owned by them. And we kind of knew then. This was January when they told us that. We were filming the finale and we were supposed to premiere then in July. And so we're like, okay, so we need to find other jobs, is what you're telling us.
But that's not what ended up happening. Because it went on.
It went on the air.
Didn't you get a season 2?
No.
Oh.
We did not get a season 2.
Oh.
But I was already on the other show then.
Already on.
I'm really.
Because what happened with me, of course, was that I had an audition for the finale episode.
Right.
Right? And I called Ray and I was like, they called me in for Maggie for one line. You want to read with me? And he was like, yeah, I think you were in your trailer.
Yeah.
And it was a really stupid, weird thing where I was like, you know, supposed to be like tonguing this shrimp and trying to seduce this person. But it was written for like a 60-year-old person.
You were too young for it, yeah.
I did get pinned. And I'm sure that was because they were like, is that Ray reading with her? But then it went away and they gave it to an older Asian woman, right?
Yeah, Sharon.
Did she come back? Well, no, because there was.
That was the finale.
See, now all this time I had thought that there was season 2. So what happened then when Maggie ended? What have you been doing?
So I've been doing the Really Loud House, which I went to the day we, like right after we wrapped Maggie, I got the call for this show and I turned a lot of auditions down at this point, like, and it was Nickelodeon and I was like, but it was, I liked what the show was saying, right? And the role is these 2 gay dads have a son who they just cherish. They love their kids so much and they just want, you know, they're constantly pushing him to be, and that's where the comedy comes in, you know, they're like making him practice the violin or whatever. And I was like, this is dope, you know, like this is for kids. And they get to see this representation of a happy gay family. So I was like, let me go do this little audition because it meant something to me. And that's sort of the criteria that I use right now. If it means something to me, if it can be a part of my mission, then I'll do it. Then I'm interested in it. Otherwise, I don't have time. You know.
So you get the audition and
the first time I booked something off a self-tape really was that show. Because I also had a chip on my shoulder about self-tapes. Because just before the pandemic, they had started to, we've talked about this. They had started, right? And I was like, why are they making us do all the work? You know, and I'm a person who I like going to auditions. I like going into and I'm a theater actor first, so I do better when there's people feeding me energy. And so I just wasn't doing great self-tapes. And for the Loud House, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do this self-tape. I'm gonna have fun with it. I'm gonna find a way. And so I found one of those studios where you go to them and they have a room and they have lights and she does it all. So you get that sense of going to an audition. I like to sing in the car on my way to an audition. It's a part of my whole little ritual. So I got to do that again. And I walk in, she's like, do you want to rehearse? I'm like, nope, let's do it as though this were an audition in person. She's like, great, we do it, we do one take and I'm done. Right? I was like, great. She's like, you want to watch it? Nope. Send it to me. I upload it and I'm done. I've never seen it to this day.
Really?
Yeah. I just want that feeling of like, hey, so I feel like if I just have to watch a self-tape over and over and over again, like it takes all the magic out of it for me, you know?
It is so, that's I think the hardest part.
Yeah.
Is then having to watch your 13 3-minute scenes and pick, I can't, like.
Pick one, which one is best? Yeah.
So, okay, so you did the one take, you sent it in, you forgot about it,
completely.
and
And then got a call to come to New Mexico like 3 weeks later. Still thinking it was 1 episode at the time. And then the contracts came and I was like, oh, this is 2 episodes. I was like, that's 2 episodes, but it's not, it's gonna be like a recurring.
because if you're the dad, I mean, and the lead is the son.
Well, our son is the lead's best friend. So I think our son is number 1 on the call sheet. No, the little boy is number 1. Our son is number 2 on the call.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then the little boy, the lead little boy's parents are like 3 and 4, and all of his sisters, because they're the loud.
Okay.
Yeah.
My friend Roxanne is one of the labs. Roxanne Ortega.
Who did she play?
She's on Casa Grande.
Casa
And it was a
My bad.
spin-off from a character from the Loud House.
Okay.
You know Roxanne?
No, I just auditioned for the Loud House like every week. Like, I'm trying so hard to get on. Voice over.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, whenever it was like live action work, that's huge. Yeah, no, that show is great, and
Yeah.
the audience is insane. And there's like 4 spin-off shows that haven't equally.
Crazy. Yeah, I had no idea. There's like all this fan art. Like people love this show.
Amazing.
So, and it's a great little, it's a great gig. It's not series regular money, but it's good money,
Yeah.
And it's good work.
Yeah. So you get to go to New Mexico.
I go to New Mexico.
What do you think about New Mexico? Did you know I lived there?
Did you really?
I lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico for 3 years. Yes, I did.
Santa Fe's nice.
Santa Fe's nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work happening in Albuquerque right now.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of actors who have found agents in Albuquerque who can't find agents here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a place to be. And some of the leads of Loud House are selling their houses here and buying houses in Albuquerque because the cost of living is so low.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I have an agent in Albuquerque.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I do.
Yeah.
Hustle. Yeah, hustle.
Yeah.
Okay, so Loud House happens and so is this season finished or
We
now?
just wrapped season 1
Okay.
Friday.
Okay.
I just got back and we start season 2 and 3 in May because they're kids and so they're growing. So they're like, we got to get this done.
Wow.
We got to get these kids filmed before they're 16.
That's kind of great though, financially, I would imagine. Is it?
Yes and no. I mean, I don't know. It's all the same.
Okay.
It's great to like condense it time-wise so that I'm not committed because now I feel like I have to finish this role and I don't want to be attached to it for too long.
Yeah, but then there's gonna be a movie.
The movie is happening in February.
So you're gonna do seasons 1, no, you're gonna see 2, 3, and then film the movie?
No, the movie's in February, like next month, like in 2 months.
You start filming the movie
They're
next
doing the
month?
movie, yeah, or in like February the 2nd or something.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but like again, they'll do us in like a couple of days,
Yeah.
get all of our scenes out of the way.
Yeah.
And then carry on. If we make the final cut of the movie, you never know, they're still writing and stuff. So who knows?
It sounds like a lead.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's really, I mean, right, it's just, you listen to it, do you, as you tell it, do you see how much serendipity?
Well, that's what
how
I'm
much
hearing.
flow
Yeah.
it's been?
Yeah, and that's what I needed to say it out loud to a room of people, because there's still that part of your mind that goes, what's gonna happen? That little sense of panic of like, because listen, when I say that I was happy in my new career, I was happy in my new career. Like, I love the consistency of just going to work every day telling story, and there was a part of me that felt a little bit cheated that I got pulled away from what I wanted to do. But my husband was like, it's not that you're cheated. He's like, he said what you said, look at the rhythm of your life. Like the minute you let go of control, things just kind of flow. So why not just get on that wave and just flow and see what's next? I was like, all right.
Do you think that you will go back to a writer's room eventually?
Maybe.
I mean, you have also written and directed short films.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
you haven't already created your own content.
yeah. I liked starting out as a writer on a new show with new people,
Mhm.
right? I don't know how comfortable I would be, say, going into the CSI Vegas writers room. That's been, because I just watched an episode last night.
Do you know that I have been called for that show 6 times in the past 4 months?
Really?
It's weird.
Wow.
Don't worry, you'll book the next one, just because that was said.
But they're calling you in, and that means they like you.
Yeah.
You just want to.
Give me a paycheck.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, like, well, so can we talk about Beresford very quickly?
Sure.
I mean, I think that, so we have a mutual friend who we love, Beresford Bennett. Do you know Beresford?
I don't think so, I don't know.
Okay, Evan might know Beresford, because I brought Beresford to when I used to teach with Marcia. And Beresford is also a storyteller.
Mhm.
And a musician and a super talented guy, and just could not get a foothold
Yeah.
for a long fucking time.
Come on.
And just 6 months ago,
Not even.
not even,
Yeah.
he got staffed on Station 19.
Yeah.
So he's gone into the situation where it's already a well-oiled machine.
Right.
And we still haven't had a chance to like talk about it. I'm dying to talk to him.
Right.
So,
Right.
have you had a chance to like find out how it all?
A little. I reached out to him.
Yeah.
Because I said, listen, you are about to experience the most intense imposter syndrome you've ever experienced in your life. And
Why did you think?
because I just did it.
You had just.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, and I know we have the same story. We were roommates in college. Like, I know him. You know what I mean? I was like, this is about, and the other thing I said is everybody else around you is or has been there as well. Like, it's just a part of the gig of being in a writer's room.
Wow.
And every writer I know, no matter what level they are, they can attest to that. Oh yeah, I felt like a complete fraud for the first year, 2 years, 6 months, whatever the case may be.
Wow.
So I just wanted to make myself available to him to say, if you just want to vent or whatever, I'm available.
And so how did he respond to that?
He was so overwhelmed that he couldn't really even respond.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like he was so in it that he was just like, no, you know. It's a lot. It's a lot. And these people are smart in some of these rooms. And not that we're not, but when you're on a network show in any capacity, and there's notes coming down from above all the time. And you have actors and fights with the actors and tension with these two, and this one won't do that, and this one it's a lot of pressure, and then you're the writer on set and you have to go up to some big star and be like, hi, this is coming in a little hot. We want it to be a little bit more, can you bring it down a little bit? You have to have courage.
Yeah.
You have to have courage to do that job. So
now you and I spoke a little bit about what it was like for you as a writer on Rebel watching self-tape audition.
Yes.
And so could you share what that experience was for you?
I mean, I had a couple of different experiences, right?
A lot of sighing going on.
Yeah, it's because I learned a lot, because listen, when you're producing the episode, you're helping to cast those little roles, right? So the audition goes out to all the agents. You get hundreds of self-tapes in, right? And this is how it sometimes ends. We're on set, they call cut. I open my email, Ray, have a look at these choices for the nurse and let me know. Okay, they're setting up the next shot. Play. I don't like her hair. Her nose. This is weird. Who is she? She reminds me of Stacy. I hate Stacy. That one. Boom. Action.
Oh.
And it happened. And y'all, as an actor, I was like, I just had to come. I was like, is this it? But it wasn't, it's not personal. There's just no time.
Yeah.
There's just no time.
It's like the most like opposite definition of personal.
Yeah.
When you're on that side, and it's
Yeah.
so personal.
Right. And that's why my manager's advice when I first signed with him to get those specific pictures was so important. Because you can't give them any reason. Well, he doesn't look like he works at the cell phone company. I need somebody who's the thing right away, you know?
Yeah. I had another one. I've spoken to you guys before about it when they call me in for ditzy. I just will never, and there is no universe where I can play ditzy. I just don't, I look at myself and I'm like, this is not a ditzy woman.
Right.
I can be an alcoholic or a drug addict who makes bad choices, but I cannot be a ditzy woman. And I got another one right before on Friday or whenever it was. And the first thing it said was ditzy. And I was like, there's just no way I will book this.
Right.
Because whoever has written this role has a very specific woman in mind. And even if I act the shit out of this audition, they will never look at me and go, yep, ditzy.
Yeah.
There are 500 ditzy actors that they can choose from.
That's exactly. Nobody has the time to watch my tapes and be like, well, she played ditzy well.
Right.
It doesn't exist.
Right.
So, you know, that's why sometimes when you get these, and you'll know when you get the audition, you just know, like there is no universe where I can be this person. And I'll do my best because I want to come through for the casting people that call me in for this, but
yeah,
this is just not gonna go.
I make it a challenge when I get those.
What do you do?
I mean, it happens all the time, and I appreciate it when I had one last week where my agent was like, I think this is too edgy for you. Do you want to do it? And I was like, I'm going to do it. Now that you said that, you know? And I know he's probably right? Like, I'm not really going to be the cop, although I've been a cop, but like, who's like fighting the guy. Like, that's not going to be me.
Yeah, maybe not.
It's not going to be me. I know I have friends who it could be today, but it's just not going to be me. But am I going to turn down the audition at this point? If there's something I can get out of it, if I can create value in some way and I challenge myself, then I'm going to do it. And just see and find a new way to do it. And here's what I do now. I don't try to do what I think they want. I don't try to play ditzy. I'm like, well, what if ditzy means something different to me? Right? And then I do that. Or what if a tough cop to me is this and not what you think it might be? At least I'm taking the moment to do my work and make it my little stage and have some fun.
And be authentic.
And be authentic. And then they can go, oh, he is not a cop, but that's really fucking funny. You know, what he is doing, or it's weird. That's so weird what he's doing. I like him.
I like it. Yeah. That's one thing Sandra Oh always, I remember her always saying in interviews is she had like years where she just was auditioning, couldn't book a fucking job before Grey's Anatomy, I guess. And she would just have her own take on these characters, and the feedback would always be like, she's weird.
Yeah.
And that weirdness has now turned into
it's a whole career.
Whole last career.
Yeah.
So you said that at this point you're turning, are you cold, honey? Are you guys cold?
It's cold.
You're always cold. People with a hat.
That's why we're the head.
Do you want me to put on the heat? Anyone want heat?
Okay.
He's like, we could have
a little space heater just on your side.
You're cold though, you just got that.
Yeah, you said it. I'm like, oh, it's nice. I'm just covering myself up a little bit.
All right, well, if you change your mind, it's right there.
He'll probably be anyway.
Maybe. So you said at this point you are turning down a substantial amount of auditions. Tell me when you know that it's not for you.
The most recent one that I turned down was for this movie called Space Race for Apple TV. And the breakdown said all ethnicities, submit all ethnicities, and I was like, okay. And then I read it, and there was just nothing. There was no character, and the character's name was Juan, Juan. And I was like, what are they trying? Like, they're just throwing stuff at the wall now, you know? And they want me to come in and do all the work.
Yes, that's right.
You know, like there's no, this character doesn't mean anything. I looked at it, he doesn't have to be a big character, but I'm like, he has to have something. He has to have, and it just wasn't me. And what it needed, and it's what it got, I think Jim Rash got the part.
Wow.
He was on Community.
Okay.
He also directed me in another pilot that I did that didn't get picked up somewhere in the past.
Okay.
But he's like he's huge, and he's also a what do you call an improver.
Huge,
So,
like physically?
no, he's huge, like his career is huge.
Right.
Okay.
But like that's what he does. Like, so he's gonna go in and give them a whole different character, right? Like, he's gonna improv it and figure it out for them. And I was like, this is not what I do right now. You know what I mean? Like, I need something on the table.
Yeah, okay, so you see something that you don't feel, that you feel they're looking for you to fill in, you're like,
It's not even that, it's just there's a vibe that I get sometimes where it feels like no work has been done. Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I don't really have time for that. You know, and I also don't like submit all ethnicities.
I get that all the time. I'm like, how am I gonna go up against Black women and Asian women and Latino women?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna expect to.
I mean, it's different. It's gonna be a different performance from everybody, but I just be specific, you know?
Any little specific thing.
Any little specific
Feel
thing
like
would help.
placeholder that they have.
Yes.
It's
What?
giving what?
It's giving, I don't see color.
Right. That's exactly right.
Right.
Yeah. Write the character and we'll give you the character. You
You
know?
have to say, you send the, like, if your agency's admit, you know, it's not stated, it's probably like, yeah, whoever.
Yeah, I know, I get a lot of those,
Yeah.
and I know whenever I get them, I'm not gonna book it.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe I have booked, maybe actually the Criminal Minds might have been that, it was maybe. But for the most part, I know that especially in this day and age where they really are making an effort to have more diverse hires, I'm not gonna book it. And so, and I wish the writers and producers would put a little bit more, make it a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
Because
It's a strange time.
It
right?
is.
People are afraid to be too specific about it, you know, it's like you said, I don't see color. They're afraid that if they write that specifically, they're gonna get canceled in some way or something. And listen, they're not wrong. Sometimes a lot of these people coming after the writers and producers for what they're doing, I'm like, y'all need to chill out. Like, these are writers, let them do their work, you know, let them tell their stories.
Did you have that kind of experience when you were writing on Rebel?
I mean, we definitely had those conversations in the room, you know? And when we were pitching stories, like, that was a lot of what we would pitch on, you know? Because it's in the air.
Yeah.
And you get notes about it, and what does she represent, and who is this? And well, this is the only time we've had a little Black girl in the scene, and she's not shining very well, so we can't do that, and we gotta, you know, there's a lot of those conversations are happening.
Which is great.
It's great, yeah.
Okay, so what do you guys want to ask Ray? And that includes you, Evan.
Lynn, Jim Cash was on the impeached.
Who was?
Yeah.
What, did he play my husband?
No. No.
I'm gonna look him
He's
up.
he's the flight attendant on Bridesmaids that has a whole thing of Kristen Wiig when she had the breakdown.
Oh.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look him up.
he has an Oscar for writing the Descendants.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
what's his
Nat
name?
Faxon.
They're grounding.
Oh, yeah, I know that name, Nat Faxon.
He's.
He was also in that pilot
Oh, really?
that Jim directed.
That makes sense.
God, I barely recognize him. Don't tell.
Stop
Wow.
watching Sopranos.
I guess he has not really impacted me very good.
He's really
He's
funny.
weird, yeah,
Yeah,
but specific in a weird way that probably is like great whenever the writers don't know what they wanna do.
exactly.
Something.
It's
Yeah,
So I was like, oh, that makes.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. It'll be great.
Can you talk more about, not doing what you think they want in your auditions? I have such a hard time with that, cause
Yeah.
when you're doing self-tapes especially, and you're like trying, we're playing producer and director of ourselves, and it's hard not to imagine the final product.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, can you say something?
You know, the teaching that helped me the most with that was when Diana Castle talks about empathizing with people and how we're all connected and you are every character, right? So just taking away that sense that when I read something on the page, that it is somehow separate from me, right? Oh, this is a lawyer. That's not me. No, what if I were a lawyer? What law school would I have gone to? And that's how I started, right? What kind of lawyer would I be? What would be my values? Where would I live, right? So that I started at that early stage, like when you first read the breakdown, because I don't know if this happens to y'all. Sometimes you'll get an audition and you read the breakdown and there's a little clip that'll say, this is separate from me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not what they're looking for. They're looking for this. When you read the breakdown, so I started in that process at that time. Where did I go to school? Where do I live? I just had this with this audition for a play because it was this wealthy Black lawyer during the Rodney King riots. And I was like, that's not me. And I was like, well, no, if it was me, where would I live? I was like, I would live in Lafayette Park over here off of Crenshaw in those beautiful mansions just back behind.
Yes.
And what kind of car would I drive? I would drive the Mercedes SLS, the blue one or the white one with the convertible, right? And what's my wife look like? Well, she is. So it's all about how I want it to look, right? And you just start building from that place. And then you can do your lawyer or your version of the thing and not theirs. How would I say I object? Why am I objecting? You know, asking all those kinds of questions builds something really specific so that you're never outside of yourself in the creation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does very much.
Yes.
Yeah.
What else? What else we got for Ray?
I love talking about acting.
Me too.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things. So.
What do you think about when people always like make bold choices?
Say that again?
When people, I feel like I hear a lot of make bold choices, or like you see all these, they booked it because they made a bold choice.
Yeah.
But I hear that and I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean they throw on a funny voice, or do they?
Right. I think
yeah,
a bold choice is quite often just a specific choice. Because so many people are not specific that if you're just like really, if you're paying attention to you and your worldview and the character that you want to build, those are already bold choices. I remember for Apartment 23, at the time I would go to Avi to run auditions because I had just signed with him. And so I go and I had made this choice, right? I don't even remember what it was. I said a line in a certain way, right? Because it resonated with me. And Avi said, don't do that. That's too much.
Exactly.
I don't like that. And I was like, oh, okay. And I drove away and I was like, that's how I want to do it. So I went in and I did it and I booked it. In the middle of the producing, they interviewed the showrunner at one point. They're like, tell us about Ray Ford. She's like, oh my God, I love Ray so much, blah, 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 kiki. And she's like, when he did the audition, there was this one beat and he did this. And she named the thing that I did. She named the choice. And I did this. And I was like, right? She's like, there was this one thing that he did that was so, nobody else did that. And it was just so funny and I liked it. Because I was staying true to myself. It was in, I don't remember, I don't remember. Oh, I do remember, it was a birthday cake line, it was just the way I said a line. I just emphasized a different word than most people would have emphasized. It was about, she had sex on somebody's birthday cake. And I just made it make sense to me because it didn't, reading it on the page, and I'm like, well, that's weird. Maybe they want this. No, this is how it makes sense to me. So let me do that.
Oh my goodness. Yes, make it make sense to you.
To you. I'm the one that has to drive to this audition and like put my soul out in the room. So I'm gonna do what feels good to me.
Right? Now, when you were watching the auditions in Rebel, and you saw someone who you felt, because I remember there was one that we had one conversation where you said, just say the words.
Yeah.
Don't put anything extra on it. Just say the fucking words.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what inspired that thought? What were you seeing?
So a lot of time, and this I saw it clearly watching these tapes. A lot of times you get a script, and it's, I don't know. She walks into the doctor's office and she asks the receptionist, "My appointment. You're running late for my appointment, and I have to get to the doctor. I need to get out of here now because my mother is sick at home and I need to take care of her. What's happening with her?" That's the scene, right? It's just a question. It's just a question to a receptionist. That's all it is. And actors always feel like you have to do something with it. You have to, I'm running late. And it may be true, right? It may be real. My mother is sick. And people do stuff like that. I'm exaggerating it, like size-wise, but they'll be like in film size. And it's just not necessary. It's just not necessary. We know it, right? You can have all that stuff going on inside. You should have all these ideas and opinions and your relationships, your person, places, things, and events. I know who your teacher is, but it's all under here. You look at it and then throw it away. And actors have I have had a really hard time.
Especially coming from the theater. Well, and you're also, theater stuff.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've all had this experience where you do a self-tape and you're like, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm not doing anything, And so we start doing stuff, decorating it like a Christmas tree. Let's do this and let's do that. And then you can't see it anymore.
Yeah. But then, correct me if I'm wrong, because now you've done that, but you've also done this Nickelodeon thing. And I should have called you. Why did I call you to read with me when I did? Oh, but I worked with Rachel. Rachel.
It's fine. No, it's fine. You probably booked it if Ray would have read it. I know that's where we were going with it.
I'm sorry, Rach.
I don't know.
I just watched it back. Well, no, it's because I know. Do you know Audrey Moore? Audrey helps.
I'm not there either.
Wait, I'm gonna let me. Evan's looking at me like you fucked up again. Evan,
help me.
Help me. Okay, you never heard of Audrey Helps Actors? Okay, so she has this podcast. She's a woman I went to Beverly Hills Playhouse with 1,000 years ago. She's a super talented woman. Very, very, very tall woman. And she was kind of like, she was struggling to get her career going, struggling. And then I think she got some success. And then she started doing this podcast called Audrey Helps Actors. And the podcast blew the fuck up. And she really was able to kind of, was able to really parlay like a beautiful career with and she still does the podcast, and she's very actor oriented. She really does want to help actors. But I was with her last night, and she was talking about, because I tell you guys all the time with the self tapes, don't fucking overwork it. if you're doing 30, 40, 50 takes, put it away.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that to
Shouldn't
you.
take that many,
It
yeah.
shouldn't take that many. But Audrey says she does it until it's done. She does it until she feels it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that she's not the only one that does that.
Mm-hmm. And people book that way too.
And people book that way.
Yeah.
So, and I have worked with you on self-tapes, and I know you don't have a lot of patience for it.
Mm-mm. I'm better.
You are better?
I'm definitely better. Yeah.
Could you see yourself working on a self-tape for 3-4 hours?
Never.
Never.
Well, the prep work, yeah, of course. I'll break down the scene all day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I even learn it now sometimes, which I wouldn't do before. You know, like I'll learn the words, right? And I just couldn't. I was like, this is because I didn't learn them in person. I should have to learn them to make a little movie for you. That was my attitude. I would go into the room and have my script in my hand. Now I got to learn the words. You know, but now I'll learn it. But I also, I had this the other day, they sent me 8 pages of text at 9 o'clock Wednesday night, do 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm not learning that. That's a teleprompter moment.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Then you're like, okay, clearly you're not respecting my time. It's okay, you're busy. You didn't know you were casting this major new television show, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'll give you that, but now I'm gonna do a teleprompter.
Good. So this brings me back to, I had forgotten the origin of my question, which was the concept of keeping it small and very, having all of the water rumbling underneath the ice, right? Which is
Right.
the metaphor my teacher uses a lot. But really just delivering a simple audition and just saying the words, versus if you're going into like a Nickelodeon kind of thing. I would imagine then it becomes a little bit more like cha-cha.
It does.
Okay.
It does, but it still has to be true.
Rounded.
It still has to be grounded and real.
Yes.
And the way that I have, do you guys know Commedia dell'arte? That's how I plug in, right? It's like Commedia is heightened, but it's real emotions. You know, Pantalone is really fucking greedy, and it makes him loud because he's so greedy. And that's how I get it. You know, so I really love my kid. You know, it's so funny playing with that kid too, because he feels it, and I'll be like, he's like, you know, and so then, but it's still true. An actor named Stephen Guarino.
Had you worked with him before?
No, I knew him because he was on Happy Endings, and he was on that show, that Showtime show about the comics.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's something out here.
Dying.
Yeah.
He was on that, and so I knew him from that.
Okay.
And so yeah, we have lots of mutual friends.
You have fun with him?
We have fun. Yeah, he's a big.
He's funny.
He's funny. Yeah, you have to be on your toes with Steven, because he'll be like taking you there. Yeah, it's good. It's good for me.
Yeah. All right. What other questions do we have for Ray before we move on to our own work?
You had said that if there's a way to separate, like the one thing that you would want us to learn or take from this would be like learning how to separate acting from your identity. That's like the most important step for you. I was gonna ask you like what that looks like, how did you do that? I'm sure it wasn't a one-trick thing, but
it's an ongoing thing, right? I mean, it comes down to my spiritual practice is a big part of that, because it's also like about not connecting and putting too much importance on what's happening outside. Understanding that it's your life that affects the environment, right? Nothing outside of me adds any value to my life. And for me, it's just embracing that idea and striving to live it every day. Nothing, literally nothing outside of me. There is no amount of money, no series regular job that's gonna bring me any happiness. Like, and it's annoying because you think, I'm making this money, everything should be okay. It has nothing to do with it. Once it happens, there's a whole new set of challenges, struggles, and problems. And people pulling on you all the time. off of me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just a whole nother thing. You just have a little bit more money in your pocket. It adds nothing.
Mhm.
And so the more you can know that, the more freedom it's gonna bring. And it's hard in LA because we celebrate actors and success. They made blah, 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 an episode and blah, 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 and she bought this house up here and it's got this and that. And so you think that's where the value lies, and it just doesn't. And it sounds cliche to even say it out loud, that the worth is inside you. But most of us don't know that and don't live it.
You gotta find the peace without the thing.
Without the thing.
You're gonna need the peace.
Yeah.
Peace without the thing.
I mean, I had a teacher who used to say that the thing, what you really want is not the thing, you want the feeling that the thing is gonna give you, right?
Yeah.
And so just just get the feeling and stay there. And then from that place, you can do your work in a different way to begin with,
I love that.
you know? Because then you're not like worried about what they want. You're like, no, this is what I want.
Mhm.
This is how I want to do it. Like, that was goofy. I don't care.
Mhm.
That's how I wanted to do it today.
Yeah.
It's hard to stay in that place.
Well, that's a very liberating place.
It
you know,
is.
and that's my whole goal as a teacher and also as an artist, is to get to a place in the work and also in my mindset where I feel liberated to be here,
Mhm.
as opposed to trapped here,
Mhm.
you know?
Listen, and this is not every day. Like, I have to do this work every day to stay like on the beam, as they say. I was working just last week, and I just gotten over a cold, so I'd taken Dayquil, and I'm a sober person, so anything I take affects me, right? So I'm in the makeup chair, and it's cracking on. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning, and she's putting in, and the lead comes in, the lead dad, grown up, comes in. He's like, hey, I'm like, hi, good morning, blah, blah, blah. She's putting on my makeup, and I just went into a panic attack. No reason. Like, you're the worst actor in the world. Everybody's gonna be looking at you. No, nothing had happened. I was like, what's going on? I was like, I'm having a full-fledged panic attack for no reason, you know? And the makeup artist, it was so severe, the makeup artist saw it happening. And she put her arm on my shoulder and she laid down and she says, hey, good morning. She's like, it's early. It's a lot. You're okay. I was like, now I'm crying. I was like, okay, you're okay. You know what you're doing. She was older too, right? So she was like in her 60s. So she'd seen it.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, this is an actor freaking the fuck out at 5 o'clock. You
How
know?
do you think she saw it? What, were you crying?
I wasn't crying, but my eye movements took off. I think that's what she saw, like my eyes dancing, you know? And so she was like, oh, brother is having a meltdown in my chair for no reason. You know, so that happens sometimes too. You know, so I have my people that I will call and be like, hey, Stephanie, I'm about to go on set and I'm losing my mind, or I'm about to go into this network test and I think I might die. And she'll say, where are your feet? On the ground. Take a deep breath. She's like, breathe deeper than that. And I just go, and then you're back to yourself and you can do your work again. You know, so I say all that to say that's a part of it too.
Yeah.
You know, it's not always like, I'm gonna do it. I know
Right.
me. I know me.
Right.
No, it's a fucking struggle.
Yeah. They're just practicing every day.
Being in the fucking moment and not caring what other people think. My grandma used to say, I ain't gonna let these people worry me to death. And I say it all the time, you know, just like get people out of my space. Let me do my work.
Love that. Anything else? Right.
I had one question, Ray. It's about reps because I'm kind of going through it at the moment.
Yeah.
I heard what you said about my first agent they sucked. The second agent, they sucked. And it took some time to try and find the right people for you. How did you know when you had the right people on your team? And when did you, I know it's different now how to find them, but just when did you know you were, you had the right team around you?
I mean, the easy answer is when I started booking, right? When I started booking regularly. But Avi, the guy that I'm with now, I mean, I shared this story earlier about him having these specific characters in mind for me to play. When I saw that he could see me, right, that he had looked at me and said, this is what you should be working as, and then I got those jobs, then I trusted him a little bit more. You know, I think the big thing is somebody who can see you and see all of you, you know. And I think we have to be specific in our intentions and really write them out. What is the right agent for me? What do I think it should be, you know? And I have a list of like all of my goals, and I go to it every day, twice a day, and I'm revising it. So if it's an agent, I want an agent who sees me, who's getting me out, who's booking me work, who knows how to negotiate a contract, right? Because I've had agents fuck that up too. Why am I making this amount of money? Do you know what I mean? Like, you want all of it. And once you'll know when it's happening, you know. Also know this, Evan, most people are not happy with their agents. Most people, and this goes back to what you were saying, because my agent is something outside of me that's not doing what I want them to do, you know? So I think the more that you know that there's really not a whole lot they can do for you either. Ultimately, they're just getting you appointments or whatever and negotiating contracts.
But also, I mean, you mentioned that you knew that you were in the right place when you started booking.
When you get work, if you're not getting work, it's not working. You know? Or if you're not getting the right kind of work. I've had agents, I had this one agent where I was working, but I was like, why am I in Long Beach, like doing an industrial about like, why am I pushing this gurney like in a fake ass hospital for $500? This isn't right, you know? Like, what kind of work am I getting? Or why am I only getting co-stars for 20 years?
Oops.
You know? I mean, you know, you have to, yeah, if you're with this one agent, you haven't been with one agent though, doing that. If you're with one agent and they're only getting you one kind of work,
yeah,
that's not good. Even with my guys now, you know, I've been like, no, they're good, but oh, I'm getting it's all kind of the same. Am I okay with that? Yes, I am. You know what I mean? If I'm okay with it, then it's not a problem. If you're not, you have to keep searching and know that you're not alone, know that the right one is out there, and you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and knocking on doors that you're not supposed to knock on, maybe. You know, and then it will be clear. Does that help?
Yes, very much. It does. Thank you.
I'm gonna brag about you. Evan is on Snowfall.
Oh,
Evan has been on Snowfall since, what is it, 4 seasons?
Since 5 seasons. I've been on since season 2.
5 seasons.
who do you play?
I play Rennie. I'm in the projects. I started off as one of Jerome and Louis' security guys.
Okay.
And then I'm dealing in the projects is what I'm mostly doing now.
Season, you want to say it or you want me to say it?
What's that?
That this season is the first season that they actually like really beefed up his role.
Oh, that's a good.
Yeah, I'm in. This is last season. I'm in 8 episodes out of 10. Great. Yeah, it's been good.
That's the biggest compliment you can get, because they don't write for anybody they don't like, who can't do the job. And you're not happy with your agents?
I booked all the roles that I booked them myself. Through just hustle and bustle and people I know and getting opportunities. I worked as a stand-in on shows, and I've gotten auditions that way. Yeah, right. I was with a manager before I didn't really like. She didn't really get me out at all much.
Right.
Agent I'm with now has gotten me out maybe 10, 12 times in a year and a half.
Okay.
And I booked stuff, and in that time I booked stuff on my own. So that's why I'm like, It's called Starburst Agency.
So Evan, for you, I mean, this is important information. Thank you, Lynn. What I would recommend then is getting a tape of just your best stuff from Snowfall. While the last season premiered?
No, it doesn't premiere till next year.
Okay, so you have to be ready for that, right? And use that time to really push and get an agent. It might be worth looking into don't hate me, a publicist for a couple of months. It might be worth, even if you go on, what is it, Fiverr, and try to find somebody to like, just get that story out there, that Evan is doing this in these episodes. And then that's how you get an agent. They don't want if you got nothing if you're not doing anything. Right? You have to, so when you're doing something, and this was a tough lesson for me to learn, but when you are doing something, you have to really ring the bell. This is what I'm doing. Look at me.
Okay.
In the coolest way possible.
Right.
Right.
I got you. Yeah.
Speaking of, my friend Judith was on Snowfall for a couple of seasons. She plays, I forget the name, who owns the club.
Oh, she played, was it Claudia?
Claudia. She was
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, a lot of people die in that show. A lot of people die in that show.
Like, she's just like using whatever she's last done, and she just goes all around town like with a bullhorn. This is what I'm doing. This is what I did. And that's how she gets the next thing.
That's a good reminder. Okay. No, for sure. I'll definitely do that.
Because you should be if you're doing 8 episodes of Snowfall, you should I mean, I hate to say this, but there's probably a more powerful agent for you.
I think so.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I've really been on a manager hunt because I don't have one, and I felt like it's time. It's been time. And I just haven't had the luck, I guess.
Go for the big ones. How old are you? Do you mind if I ask?
I do. No, I'm just joking. No, I'm 39.
But you look
I'm 39. I don't care. I'm 39.
You look very young to me, so you should like go for the big agents. Go for 3 Arts.
Okay. I've tried. I did a whole thing this summer because I wasn't working much, and I was sending out. I have a really good reel. I was sending out all my stuff to all these different managers, all my friends. I have asked Lynn. I said, man, some managers I can reach out to. And every time I did it, I just kept getting back, you don't have enough credits, or we're not looking for anybody right now. It's really weird. And I was like, okay. I kept going at it. And then once we started this season, I kind of, not as aggressively, but because I just been focusing on the work.
Yeah.
But we only got about a month left to shoot. So yeah, I'm going to be back on it. So, but your advice is.
So do this, Evan. Publicists are also expensive. Set up meetings with the publicist. Ask them in the meetings what they could do for you.
Okay.
Take notes.
And then do it myself.
And do it yourself if it has to be that. Because they're like, the money these people are asking for is crazy. So I don't want you to think, oh, that's something that's, even if you just meet with them and steal their ideas. Then it's
okay. All right.
Get the meetings because you're like, oh, I'm on Snowfall. I'm in the you know how to do it. Twirl.
Yeah. I got you. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Ray.
Sure.
Anyone else before we talk a little bit about Vanya, which I would imagine you've read once or twice?
Uncle Vanya?
Yeah.
Oh. 130 years ago.
Anyone else have a question? Right? No? Okay, I'm gonna stop recording. Evan, I'd love for you to stay with us if you're still feeling up to it.